Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of Around the Emberring. Today I am with John Gust, aka Drindin, Robert Thompson, and Jonathan Zink. So hi guys, how are you doing
Hello.
today?
Doing well.
Doing
Yourself?
great.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, awesome. So many different things happened since our last episode in December 2021. We released our trailer, we released a lot of video on our YouTube channel, and we started to have a weekend test for our alpha tester every weekend, starting the Friday night up to the Sunday night. And we also got a lot of coverage through content creators and gaming media. So thank you to all of you that have liked, shared, commented on our video. Thank you so much for that. And thanks to all content creators who have covered our games. So in this video, we will be speaking about one big question that has come back a lot, which is all about our combat. So we're going to tell you everything you need to know about our combat, and these are information that we have not really shared so far, so this is really exclusive.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about it. I don't know, the designers here are probably going to get a little technical, but that'll be fun.
Try not to.
But I'm pretty sure we will have a lot of people that want to know all juicy technical details of this venture. Yes, so the commentary were very often surprised. Really? We are in 2022. Tap target like in 2007? Why? So let's explain why and how is it different from the game that you were used to play in 2007?
I think that's you, John. I mean, I think you're the pitch man here.
For me, tab targeting, it's more of putting the focus on the strategy rather than like a frantic action type of move or combat system, I should say.
Like,
Yeah.
it gives them the most amount of control to the player in terms of the actions that they're taking in combat. And, you know, with being able to control certain aspects that are more important versus, you know, a more modern offering with regards to pulling or crowd control, where, you know, you don't want to just be cleaving on every single attack, and you don't want to just be face pulling and just dive into groups of mobs. So because of that, there's a certain level of control that definitely needs to be present, and I think that leads directly into, you know, the need for heavily reliance on tab target.
Adric's entirely right in a sense of like control, right, and try and execute, right. So instead of putting the focus on what you do, we're trying to shift that focus on how you do it. So how do you execute? You know, in a group setting, for example, how do you execute tackling a, you know, number of monsters, right? Instead of what you're doing is just going in and either mashing buttons or, you know, just having utter chaos, right? Like, we want to allow you to slow down a little bit, think about it, and try and work together as a group. And it's more difficult to work together as a group when everybody's chaotically trying to survive, right? So when things are slowed down a bit, it gives you more opportunity to say, maybe I should help this guy out over here. Let's, you know, put some crowd control on this monster here because he's doing the most damage or something like that. So I think it opens up a lot of doors, and the gameplay slows down quite a bit, right? So you get a lot more time to think, you get a lot more time to actually do what you want to do, and you feel like you have, like Adric was saying, you feel like you have more control over the situation. And I think that's what we're going for, essentially.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's like it's less about mashing all your abilities as quickly as you can, and it becomes more about when should I use my abilities? How am I going to manage my stamina so that I can execute the abilities when I need them? So we're even trying to help introduce this idea of like managing your resources in combat rather than just trying to like do as much DPS as possible it's more about how do we get to the end of the fight and defeat whatever number of monsters come our way than just trying to like just do as much DPS as possible.
Yeah, and I mean it's a trade-off, right? So you can be fighting a single monster and be like, you know what, the goal right now is just to burn this guy down as quickly as possible. So you just blow through your stamina, you just execute every ability, and you basically execute that monster. But you know, what if in the midst of fighting that monster you get another monster, then you get another monster, right? Because then it does become a resource management game of, okay, how do I manage what stamina I have remaining while, you know, say keeping my group alive? You know, because the more people we can keep alive, the better chance we have at, you know, coming out of this unscathed.
It's really much more about strategizing, thinking, how should I tackle this fight? And so the emphasis and the skills that are required are different. And for some people, I think this is something that they are wishing. Many players do not feel dexterous. They don't want to be the best at moving away from attacks, and to be able to have more an intelligent combat, or a combat that requires them to think, to prepare, to plan, to strategize with the group. It's something that appeals to a certain kind of players.
The whole experience being a little bit more relaxed in that regard. I think even with the tab target can do both, but we're going more towards the relaxed experience of, you know, just having that time to think and make decisions.
This is another aspect important in our combat, is the fact that it allows time for socializing, for chatting. This is something I personally really like, and I had the chance to experience a lot during those weekend tests, is to just chit-chat with my group while we were busy fighting. But here, while you're landing an attack, you have the time to type a little sentence and in the chat, and then you have the socializing aspect all along your dungeon run. And I find this really, really pleasant. Not everyone wants to be on voice chats, and we have lose a little bit this habit of using the text chats. To have this time to chit-chat with your group really encourage and the social bonding, which we want to create with our game.
Yeah, and I think that's what it all comes down to: group-based gameplay and communication and community. And I think the pace that we're going for is really trying to emphasize the fact that, like, even while you're in the midst of a battle, you can communicate with your team and like change your strategy up as you go. You can call out like, all right, focus on this mob next or that mob next. You know, if you see people coming in, you know, CC that guy. You know, so it's kind of cool to take a step back from modern combat systems a little bit and go back into this kind of slower, strategic paced type of combat. And I think it's a lot of fun, and I think there are a lot of people out there who enjoy that, and we're trying to give that experience to them. So we're really excited about it. We've been getting a lot of great feedback from our community too. So yeah.
No, group composition as well. We have 6
Right.
player per group, which allow a little bit more flexibility with the role. You don't have to be very, very strict regarding, oh, you need that many tank, that many healers, and that many DPSer. And that's also allow this kind of group synergy. It allow also, when something bad happens, to have creative way of getting out of a bad situation.
Yeah, it's not like you're all of a sudden dead. You know, you can think about what you want to do. And it offers the opportunity where when you get in a group, you guys get to kind of analyze and talk about, okay, what abilities do you have and what do you have, and like, how are we going to approach things as a group? I think Wendy's right. You don't need a specific set of roles in your group to be successful. You just need to look at the tools that you have together and then use those tools as you're in combat. together, you know. So it's a really enjoyable experience.
Yeah, not only that, but like the content is broken up between you know, stuff that is soloable, stuff that small groups can do regardless of, you know, your role makeup, and then stuff that's more difficult that's targeted towards that full group. But yeah, you don't need a very specific makeup. As long as you're covering all your bases in that group, you'll be able to do that content.
Well, I've already seen some group that didn't had any tank and they resorted to kiting or some things like that, or you don't have any healer and then you have to taunt from each other, etc. So there is plenty of creative way to tackle a fight, even if you don't have the perfect group composition, and that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, try to keep it flexible to meet all play styles.
As we are speaking about roles, well, let's talk about those roles. So, what are our 3 roles, or different specialization, and how do they play together? So, let's dive deep.
We start off with our 3 basic roles, which are defender, striker, and support, and they kind of are self-explanatory. But of course, you know, support is like your buffer, healer, attackers, your damage dealer, different kinds of damage dealing. Battle medic, right? Yeah.
Right.
Battle medic, exactly. Good point. And then your defender, which is your tank, the person who's trying to funnel all the damage towards themselves. So, you know, that's kind of how we start off with our base roles, and then we kind of offer people the opportunity to get used to those roles for the first 6 levels before they specialize into other things.
Do you want to talk a little bit, Andan, regarding the inspiration related to this system?
Sure. So, you know, some of our previous iterations, we, you know, and I think we'll touch about this a little bit later, but, you know, we had kind of an a la carte system where you would pick different skills and you would kind of put them all together. And, you know, through testing, what we found was that, you know, a lot of the skills kind of didn't end up getting used, and people kind of built their character based on like what was the most optimal way to do it. And, you know, everybody kind of ended up very similar in our testing, and there wasn't a lot of character identity happening, right? So one of the things we looked at, and we looked at inspiration from, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like a lot of this game and the feeling we're trying to invoke with this game is very inspired from Dungeons and Dragons, and, you know, getting together with a group of friends and, you know, going through a slow-paced campaign of sorts, right? A very extended one. So we took a look at that, and, you know, we said, okay, how can we break these you know, these roles essentially into different subcategories that give characters a very strong identity, right? So you can go back to, you know, kind of the holy trinity, of course, of MMOs, where you have a tank, a healer, and a, you know, damage dealer, and that's essentially what these first 3 roles encompass, right? So if you boil it down to it, your striker is your damage dealer, your defender is your tank, and your healer is, or the supporter is your healer, right? But we wanted to add a little bit of flavor into those and give them a little bit of more further unique identities once you get further into the game. So the first 6 levels are more of an introductory of, like, you know, we can't throw the kitchen sink at the player and expect them to understand how things work. So what we want to do is slowly introduce them into the combat mechanics and how the game functions before making them make choices. You know, a lot of games, a lot of older games even, they, you know, at character creation, they want you to make a choice of where to put your character stats. You know, when I first started EverQuest, I didn't know anything about any of them, and I was like, oh, I'll be a ranger, and charisma says I'll get better deals at a merchant, so I put a bunch of points into charisma, you know, and I didn't understand until later that, you know, those points probably would have been better off in either dexterity, strength, or wisdom. So, you know, EverQuest kind of asked me to make a choice before I understood what choice I was making. So we're trying to not have that happen as much as possible. So we want to ease people into the pool, you know, kind of feet first before we start asking them to make more important decisions with their character. But once we get to level 6, where you can choose a specialization, those specializations, what they are is they're different flavors of that primary role. And the abilities that each specialization has takes inspiration from one of the other roles, right? So currently each role branches off into 3 other roles, and one from each is the probably the missing thing from the Holy Trinity. How would you say it? A quadrinity? I don't know how to describe it. But something that's missing from a lot of games is, the controller class, in a sense, of the person that is in charge of directing the flow of battle and controlling NPCs, whether that be through stuns or fears or sleeps or, things like that. So one of those flavors in each of those subcategories, or each of those base roles, is a controller flavor. And then the other ones have flavors from the other 2 roles. So for example, if we look at the striker, one of them is a striker, and their abilities take on this, flavor of a supporter, right? So that we behind the scenes, we kind of call him a striker supporter, even though he has the name of a warden in the game. And then we have the striker defender, which I believe is the Berserker, there it goes.
Yeah.
So his abilities are going to focus on probably doing AoE stuff, or his abilities will be inspired from a defender's abilities. And then we obviously have the striker controller, which is the brigand, which is, many people think classically as like a rogue, for example. He has stuns and things like that. He's our controller class. So all 3 base roles branch out into 3 separate roles, and that's what kind of gives us our final set of roles that have these unique abilities that kind of dip their toes into the other roles a little bit. So it mixes it up quite a bit.
And it's
It gives everyone the opportunity to choose that fun crowd control role.
yeah. And it also, it is very simple and clear for players. They really know when they choose this defender to support or this striker, they know what to expect. Someone that like to tank can take the defender. They know what to expect, and after they can.
They're not a full defender, right? So the tricky part is, and that's the tricky part is their abilities have defender-like qualities, but they're not going to be a true defender ever, right? Like that's reserved for all the defenders. But they will be allowed to wear more armor. They'll typically do probably burstier damage, or have a way to maybe get mobs' attention more easily, right? Or more mobs' attention more easily, as opposed to the striker supporter, which is the warden, right? So that guy has some support abilities. For example, one of the abilities is a heal. It's a heal over time, but it's fragile in the sense of if the person you give it to gets hit, then it goes away, right? So like, it's a supporting role in the sense of like, I can heal someone that's not currently the target of the monster, or I can heal people during our downtime to reduce downtime, so I'm going to take on qualities of a supporter, but I'm still at heart, I'm still a striker. I'm here to do damage, and I'm here to wreak havoc, right? So
Nice,
it's a flavor, and that's what I like to reinforce all the time, is it's a little bit of sprinkling of support in there.
Yeah, and the roles themselves define sort of like the core responsibilities. So, before you choose your specialization as a defender, you get the necessary skills to fulfill that role in groups before you pick your specialization. So that guarantees all defenders, will have some sort of taunt ability and threat increase and damage resistance on top of just, having more hit points or armor.
What
Yeah.
about the Regent?
So the reagent system, so what we've done, the direction we've taken in this game is a number of abilities are based on reagents. And, the classic reagents are games where like, oh, I want to cast this spell, so I need a specific gem. Or EverQuest, for example, you want to summon a skeleton, you need, skeleton
shields.
bones, right? Yeah, so what we've done is we've actually taken like an ability, and these abilities that require reagents, the strength of the ability now depends on what reagent you use. So this gives us the ability and flexibility as designers to go in and say, you know what, you're a supporter. In order to heal someone, you need a bandage, but we can have a variety of different bandages, right? So we can say this bandage does a single direct heal, or this bandage maybe does a heal over time that's extended, or maybe this specific bandage is a, you know, I don't know, like
More
we can
powerful.
yeah, we can change these reagents to basically define what the ability is. And what the cool thing, the thing we really enjoy about this is we can put these in the world as loot, right? So it gives a reason for players to go explore. I always play a warden because I'm a ranger at heart. So I spend a lot of time killing spiders in our game because the spiders drop venom glands, which I need for my poison strike, right? But there are other varieties of venom out there, or venom strike, I'm sorry. There's other varieties that maybe do more damage with a shorter time frame, which would cause more threat, right? So there's a whole variability which we can introduce in these abilities. So now you have one ability, but many, many different reagents that all can do different things, different flavors of ability, essentially, on top of it.
That also
That-
allow for exchange between players, so they can help each other. I'm personally always gathering the region for everyone, and then I share them with players when I see which spec they have.
Yeah, I see it all the time. Players trading with each other in groups, and hanging on to things, throwing them in the bank, and then trading them amongst each other.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep,
when we were working on the system, we were thinking, the original intent was to design like an ability type tree, right? Where you have an ability that you can upgrade over time, and you kind of select which things you want to do or specialize in the ability. But some of the downsides of that is like, it makes it more difficult to respec, and it thematically it didn't really fit with what we were trying to do. And we kind of stumbled on this idea of like, what if we take that concept of taking an ability and changing the ability, or improving the ability, through an ability tree, but instead of the ability tree that's just in some UI, we actually put those elements in the world where you have to go explore, find them, kill creatures, harvest, do all these things to actually acquire these reagents. And now you have a way to vary your ability without going through some abstract UI elements,
And if you're
Yeah.
lazy and you don't want to hunt and explore, you can still purchase them at the merchant for a very simple or
For a
Some
small
some
fee.
weak
yeah
weak versions of that.
yes, a weak version.
Yeah, I think it's great. It also offers it fits with our game in the fact that it kind of asks you to think about things before you run into them. Hey, do I have enough reagents to get through this dungeon run? Do I have enough supplies in my pack to get me through whatever my party decides we're going to go out and do? And that's essentially, we're trying to immerse people into the world. We're trying to get them to strategize, to slow down a little bit, to smell the flowers per se, And this is one element in which we're trying to promote that.
And if
It
you're
also-
scared about inventory management, do not worry, because we have a special pouch for the region.
We do. And one of the other interesting design ramifications of this is it kind of balances things out, because if you think of if we didn't have this reagent system, for example, and you had a supporter, and your supporter needs bandages to heal someone, but no one else needs reagents to do their abilities, then it was kind of like, well, now the supporter either has an advantage because they can get better bandages later on, or everybody else is just like doesn't need reagents. So this kind of levels the playing field across all the roles as well, that everybody needs their own set of reagents. And the idea is that they drop from different things, right? So each base role and each specialization has their own unique reagents, and they drop from different places. So our goal is to encourage groups to get together and say, hey, let's go fight and gather some reagents. Okay, who's up next? Okay, the warden, let's go fight some spiders, right? Or the defender, let's go fight some bears, right? So they're going to draw from different places, and it's going to encourage exploration and, you know, working together with your friends, your team, you know, and it also gives you something to do in the downtime while you earn experience and money and other loot. So
Yeah, I like the idea of like even before you get in a group, like I think John was saying about like gearing up before you go in the dungeon. You know, you can take, 30 minutes while you're looking for a group, go around town, gather some resources, maybe kill some easier mobs that do drop these reagents too, so you can sort of stock up for your adventures when you do find some people to group up with.
Now let's conclude this episode with a few questions that you guys have been asking on various videos and other social media. So what is our monetization model and why is it sub-based? Maybe John want to answer that.
Yeah, sure. We are a subscription-based game, and the primary reason for that, I guess the meta reason for that is all of us hate cash shops. But there's a reason why we hate cash shops, and there's a reason why we want to do a subscription base. Again, it kind of comes down, in a sense, to community. Like, we want to make sure that our customers and players know that when they're giving us money, we're using that money to put right back into creating gameplay content. We're not trying to create items for a digital storefront or, creating other things for microtransactions or pay-to-win items. Like, it's all about the game, and that's why people come to games to play games, not to shop. So, the idea is that it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, right? Like, there's a subscription that's keeping us operating so that we can continue to improve the game, to improve our server infrastructure, to pay our devs, and then we're constantly putting in new items, quests, zones, all kinds of stuff into the games. We want to continually be putting content into the game for people to play, because that's why we're all here. We're all here to play a game, and yeah, I mean that's the main.
I also think
reason.
that it is the most democratic way of doing. For everyone, it's the same. So you will not have any difference between the player that has a lot of money to pour into the game and the player that don't have a lot of money to put in the game. Everyone is equal, and if you want stuff, you have to work for it in game.
Yep, and that's a big sticking point for a lot of core MMORPG players. They are not interested in being passed over because another player has purchased other items that make them better, per se.
Or fancier, because sometimes it's just cosmetic, but it's the same. Oh, this guy looks super cool because he just used $20 on it.
Yeah, I mean, people play for different reasons. Cosmetics are some of the reasons that people do play the game, so I think it does detract from them as well.
Another question. How likely are we going to release our game? Do we have a roadmap? I think you have an exciting answer to that.
We do absolutely have a roadmap. We have an announcement coming out on 2/2/22, so keep your eyes open for that. We will be making some big announcements. We will be launching this year. I'm not going to tell you exactly when, but keep your eyes out for this announcement. It's got a lot of information in it, and we're very excited to keep chugging along closer and closer to launch. We definitely talk about a beta phase in this announcement, so keep your eyes out.
Will this game be localized, translated in other languages?
As we grow, that's one of the goals, is to localize.
Is focusing on crafting and gathering alone will be a viable and fun choice in Embers Adrift?
sounds like a question for our senior designer over there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you could only do harvesting and crafting. This is sort of goes hand in hand with adventuring, and is sort of utilized to serve and supplement the adventuring part of the game. And so even like resources from like hunting are tied directly into hunting animals and harvesting their leather. So obviously it would be very difficult to pursue, harvesting of that without also participating in adventuring. But that's not to say that if you had someone providing you with resources, you could absolutely be a dedicated crafter. That is definitely something that would be supported.
And so this was our last question. Everything else, we will be talking in the next episode. We will be talking about the lore. We will be talking more in detail about crafting. But if you do have any question for us, do not forget to leave them in the comments below. I hope you did enjoy this episode. And if you have any guildie or any friend that is wondering about our game, you can let them know about this area video, and that will maybe give them some detail that they need. Guys, thank you so very much for your participation in this
thank you.
episode.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care of yourself. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
See you, everybody.